Welcome to the 27th installment of ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Top Story. I'm your host, Tiff Wells. With me today is former UH baseball pitcher and now somebody you see on your TV, both with KHON2 and also Spectrum Sports, Sam Spangler. Sam, welcome to Top Story.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Now, first off, you're born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And for those that haven't been, describe the 505 for us.
Polar opposite of Hawaii, that's for sure. It's an interesting place because it's high desert. So it's I think 5,000 feet is the elevation. So there's mountains and stuff. There's skiing and snowboarding in the winter. People like to do a lot of outdoorsy stuff, but we get a lot of sand, as my dad likes to say, but not a lot of water. So there's beaches. There's just no water to go with it.
Now, your state is also famous for hot air balloon rides. When's the last time you took a hot air balloon ride?
I've actually never been totally up in a hot air balloon. So yeah, they have the International Hot Air Balloon Fiesta, and it's in October every year in Albuquerque, and it's incredible. If you ever get a chance, if you're listening, you get a chance to go. It's an unbelievable event. Sometimes they have 1,000 hot air balloons. They'll send them up in waves in the mornings. Good food, good coffee. Nice breakfast burritos. But yeah, when I was a kid, they used to land in our elementary school. And so they would give us tether rides, which was really cool. They'd come, they'd land, they'd have the chase crew come, and then they'd tether the balloon and you go up like 20 or 30 feet. And, and when you're in first grade, that you might as well be 1,000 feet in the air. So that's the only time I've done it as far as like getting in the balloon. So that's one thing I got to take my wife Chassie up to go do a hot air balloon ride one of these years.
All right, you mentioned food. We're recording this on a Tuesday morning, middle of the morning. You mentioned breakfast burritos. If you're in the kitchen making a breakfast burrito, what's in it?
So there's a few ingredients that are a must. I'm a big cheddar cheese guy in my breakfast burrito. So obviously when I get in there, it's going to be standard eggs, cheddar cheese, but also what I'm going to put in there are some potatoes. So in New Mexico, say you get papas on your breakfast burrito. And then what I found recently at Costco, which has been incredible, is these 40-ounce containers of this 505 New Mexican green chili, which is the real deal, authentic stuff. If you're thinking, okay, it's just chili, what's the big deal? New Mexico, for some reason, has this soil in the southern part of the state that grows this phenomenal green chili, and it's got this really unique flavor. But they still have it here at Costco, so if you're interested in making yourself some New Mexican food, just go get some. I think it's like $6 a jar. It's real cheap. So I've been using that on all my breakfast burritos. So yeah, that's my my standard. And so instead of salsa, the New Mexican green chili, gotta have some potatoes in there. So fry those up almost like French fries. And then the cheese and the eggs.
All right, everybody knows you for your baseball exploits here at UH. Growing up, was it just baseball or were there other sports you played?
Growing up, I played every sport, which was awesome. I'm super thankful for my parents for putting me in every sport. And some I loved and some I wasn't good at. And some, I made great friends. And I think that was the most important thing. But I think that helps with like athleticism and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed playing basketball and football. And then, baseball was always my first love. I played soccer. I just wasn't any good. So I appreciate soccer, but I was terrible at it.
Too much running, right?
Way too much running. Yeah, I decided to settle in as a pitcher. Not a lot of running. But yeah, so I played those sports until I got to high school and then decided to focus on baseball. And, played both positions. I played outfield. I pitched. I'm left-handed, so I didn't get to play like shortstop or anything like that. So, but yeah, I loved playing all sports. And I think that, helped when I got into sportscasting at KHON2. I already had this deep love for all these different sports that I was covering, which was really cool.
Everybody has that funny or embarrassing moment while they were playing a sport growing up. Did you have one?
Oh, yeah. So this is what my friends still text me about this to laugh. When I was 12, I don't know what happened. Like people get the yips. Like the yips is like they can't throw the ball to a certain place. Golfers, like their swing gets all messed up. For some reason, there was just one day I threw a pitch over the backstop in Little League. And you can imagine how difficult that would even be to do. It just like slipped out of my hand and like I couldn't throw it straight for like a couple weeks after that. So yeah, I had the yips and threw one over the backstop. So that was pretty wild. And like my friends to this day still give me cracks about that one.
Now, when you were on the mound, did you prefer to pitch from the windup or from the stretch? Of course, when no one's on base.
Yeah, no one's on base. I was always going out of the windup. I always thought I got a little bit more power because you can kind of create more power with your legs, drive off a little bit more. You're not like, when you're in the stretch, you're always worried about the runner. You got to be quick to home plate. So anytime you're in the windup, and then it means, hey, there's nobody on base. So you're a little more comfortable, right? So I always love pitching out the windup. That was easy.
Now, we know your state does not have a pro sports team. So who did you follow? Who were your teams growing up?
So my dad's from San Francisco. This is a funny story. So our AAA team was the Albuquerque Dukes. I'm sure they used to play against the Islanders in the PCL, his old PCL team. So they've since become the Albuquerque Isotopes. But it was the Dukes back in the day. And so they were the Dodgers AAA team. And so since my dad's from San Francisco, we're big Giants, 49ers, Warriors, Sharks, all the Bay Area teams. So when the Phoenix Firebirds, which is the Giants AAA affiliate, were coming to town, he would make me root against the Dukes. He'd be like, no, Sam, these are Dodgers. Even though this is like your hometown team, I couldn't root for them. He'd be like, these are Dodgers. You root against them. He'd be like, boo, stuff like that. So yeah, basically I always had to root against my hometown team. So yeah, I probably actually rooted for the Islanders at some point, cheering against the Dukes.
What's the easier position as a pitcher? A starter, a closer, a long-term reliever?
Ooh, that's a good question. They all require a different skill set, and really, I think most importantly is a different mindset. And so I was a closer early on in my career at UH, and then I became a starter. And I think my mindset was more geared towards that because you kind of have this like, okay, one inning, like you're gonna give everything out there, and it's really like a kind of psychotic mindset, real aggressive. And I love that. It gave me this huge adrenaline rush. It was really fun, but the starting pitcher to over the course of 100 pitches, 7 innings, to keep your focus that long, I think it's more difficult. But they both have their difficulties and things that are really great about it. But I always thought that starting was really cool. Long reliever, a lot of times when you come into those situations, like the game might be out of reach or something like that, you get in the middle innings. I think that's maybe the easiest. But I really thought that. Closing was the most fun, but starting pitching was the most difficult.
One of the guys that you work with Spectrum Sports also happened to be one of your teammates at UH in Harrison Kuroda. And there were a couple of weeks ago on a post game where he talked about a doubleheader not being that great because as a pitcher, if it wasn't your day to pitch, you're basically sitting in a dugout for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. If it's not your day in the rotation, what would a typical game day look like for you?
So it depends on what you're doing. Obviously, you can be real locked in if you're charting. They have like radar gun charts. They have, different pitch location charts. They have the spray chart for where each ball's hit. So sometimes you're on those charts and that can be kind of monotonous. But a lot of times if I was in the bullpen, we play games. Sometimes we play like bocce ball. We play fantasy baseball with our own players. I'm sure Trav doesn't love hearing anything about this, but yeah, that was like the good fun stuff to do in the bullpen. You got like the medicine balls and the baseballs. You play bocce ball, and then like fantasy baseball, you draft like I'd always draft Colton Wong. Obviously, you usually win that. So yeah, those are some of the fun games I like to play. But when you're a starter, you got to do all the charting and stuff. You're a little more locked in, I guess.
Your senior year of high school, it's coming down to recruiting and picking a school to go to college. What led you to pick UH?
Yeah, it was interesting. So it was either go to the University of New Mexico pretty much or go to UH. And, UH had recruited me earlier. And so I kind of felt a loyalty to them. But when I came out to visit UH and I got to go to Waikiki, I'm a kid from New Mexico. Again, no beaches. I traveled a little bit, but I'd never seen anything like when I came to Hawaii. And it's something as simple as, we always take for granted just going to Waikiki or walking along Sandy's or something like that. It was just unbelievable to me. And so, I had that and then had some of the food. I remember originally went to Zippy's and I was like, man, this is pretty good. And I just felt, I felt kind of at home. And so I felt comfortable. And so that was that. And then also just the fan support of the program. The fans for Rainbow Baseball are incredible. So that was something I really wanted to be a part of.
Now, most might not remember this, but you actually redshirted your freshman season. Was that tough? And what did you learn most about yourself as a redshirt in 2007?
Yeah, it was tough not being able to play because that's what you're so used to doing. So I never had like an injury or anything like that where I just had a a season basically of not competing. So that was real difficult. But I learned, basically how to fail, because, you get that situation where you're redshirt and you think, oh, I'm not good enough. But you learn that those are the points where you can really develop as a player. And so I think that was really important for me in my growth. Both, as a student, I got to focus on my academics a lot, but then just focus on my development as a pitcher. I feel like that really, really helped. So I'm glad I got to redshirt. But yeah, learning how to fail, how to, have a setback like that. You're not allowed to participate in the games, but how do you mentally overcome that? And so, I think that built some mental strength for me.
Of course, this is pre-COVID when you're at UH, but for those that haven't been a player playing at Les Murakami Stadium, describe the feeling, describe the environment.
My best way to describe it is, I remember we were playing USC in 2010. We had a sold-out Saturday night. I was pitching. And so we would do the national anthem before the game, and the little leaguers would come onto the field, and they would stand next to all the different positions. So it was me and David Freitas, our catcher. And so we had a bunch of kids around us. And so, you're looking at the flag out in the right center, and the national anthem goes, and turn around after the anthem in Hawaii Ponui, and you look at the stands, and Les Murakami Stadium is so vertical. It's right on top of you, especially when you're on the pitcher's mound. It's just real, real high. And some of the dads and kids turn around and, whoa! And so you could just hear like the shock in their voice and the intimidation of just this huge stadium and all these people up there. And, it was a sold out crowd. So it was great. And so that feeling and just having all those people behind you and cheering for you. And like, you get into I think it was like the 6th inning of that game, and there was like a "Let's Go Bows" chant. And it's just that chicken skin electric atmosphere that we never, ever encountered going anywhere on the road. Even in the minor leagues, you know what I mean? And these, like, even in Major League spring training games and stuff like that, it's never as intense as that atmosphere at Les Murakami Stadium, which is just incredible.
Your sophomore season in 2009, you had a record of 5-3. Also had 4 saves. And I'm sure if you remember, but one of those saves came on the road in Las Cruces against New Mexico State. Was it gratifying to get a save against a school that you mentioned growing up rooting for New Mexico? For the most part, they recruited you, but was it gratifying to get a save against one of your in-state schools where you grew up?
Yeah, that was awesome. It was a lot of fun, especially that if you've never been to Las Cruces, it's like playing baseball on the moon. You see all these crazy scores. It's like 25-20. And so I remember we would go down there and play in Las Cruces, and we'd have like a 10-run lead, and it never felt safe, right? So I think I came into that game, we had like a 2-run lead. I'm pretty sure I gave up a home run, which, I mean, you pitch in Las Cruces, you're going to give up home runs. Basically, fly balls or home runs there because the wind blows out, thin air, elevation, all this stuff. Yeah, I remember we escaped with a win. And that 2009 season, at that point, I think we were still ranked. We were ranked in the top 20, so we had a really good team at that point. We later collapsed, which was unfortunate. That was a rough end of the season. But yeah, that was, in front of friends and family and stuff like that. And then, yeah, a little extra motivation. The Aggies didn't really recruit me, so it was nice to kind of stick it to them a little bit.
You mentioned that you were in the WAC when you were at UH as a pitcher. What was the toughest? We know the longest road trip was going to Ruston, Louisiana to play La Tech, but what was maybe the most difficult road trip that you took as a Rainbow baseball player?
Ruston was tough because of the length of the road trip and the time difference. But I still think New Mexico State, just based off of it's a whole different brand of baseball. You know what I mean? And that's what was so tough about playing in the WAC. Not only did they have really good teams throughout the league, but playing a different style of baseball. Les Murakami Stadium, it might not be the biggest part. You see 385 feet in center field, but the trade winds, the thick air, the ball doesn't travel. You throw a pitch down the middle and somebody hits it to center, it's a fly ball out. These other parks, Reno was like that, but especially Las Cruces, man. It was like PTSD for all the pitchers once we got done with that place, because you come in with these great ERAs, your earned run average would be 1 or 2, and then you leave Las Cruces and it's like 5 or 6. So that was real difficult, especially for the pitching staff to understand, you're going to give up a few home runs. It's about, mitigating that damage, not walking guys, etc. So that was a tough place to play.
All right, Sam, I see Coach Trapp walking to the mound. We may or may not be making a pitching change right here, but stay right there. Along with former UH Rainbow baseball pitcher Sam Spangler. I'm Tiff Wells. You're listening to ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. Welcome back to ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. I'm Tiff Wells with former baseball pitcher, now KHON2 weekend anchor and Spectrum Sports analyst, Sam Spangler. Now, Sam, you mentioned about that 2009 season. You guys were ranked, had a good record before, like you mentioned, that late season collapse. What led you to come back for that 2010 season?
I just felt like we had unfinished business, so I was fortunate enough to get drafted after that 2009 season by the Pirates. But I had 2 years of eligibility left, and we hadn't won the conference title. We hadn't taken the team to a regional. So I thought it was important to come back and do something for the state of Hawaii. So a place that had done so much, not only for me, but for us as a team, all the fan support over the years. So I thought it was really important for us to win. And so, I had, even after the next year, I left after my redshirt junior year because we did get to go to the NCAA tournament. But, if we wouldn't have made it then, I thought it probably would have been best to come back for, my redshirt senior year, because the fans here and playing here in Hawaii, there's just nothing that could top that. And I think everybody all my former teammates who went on to professional baseball, even Colton, going to the major leagues, like he still talks about how special it was to play at Les Murakami Stadium. So it's just, and the university's great. It's just a great place to go to school. I obviously love it, having stayed here after my baseball career. So it's just an incredible place.
2010, you guys enter the WAC tournament, 12-12 record. Did you think there was a chance to make a run?
Yeah, it was interesting because we were just so inconsistent, but we had a ton of talent. We had Josh Slats was a 4th-round pick. Lenny Linsky was the closer, who was a 2nd-round pick. Matt Sisto was our other starter, and he was a draft pick of the Phillies. And then we had a great offense led by Colton Wong, who pretty much saved us in that tournament. He had a walk-off home run against Louisiana Tech in the first game, which was just amazing. I can't believe they pitched to him still to this day, because he hit a home run earlier in the game. They shouldn't have pitched to him. I think actually the coach, Wade Simino, told the pitcher not to throw to Colton, but he just snuck a fastball in there, and that's all she wrote. But yeah, we had a lot of talent on that team, so I wasn't surprised that we started performing that well. And then another thing that helped us is we had great team chemistry. So before that WAC tournament, we all shaved. We shaved mohawks in our head. We called them Bohawks. So it was a real fun group of guys on the team. So I'm not surprised that we played that well for that stretch.
All right, you mentioned the Colton Wong home run. That was my next question. Do you remember where you were in the dugout when he hit that walk-off bomb?
Yeah, I was next to Trapp, and being next to Coach Trapp, he's so great at keeping a game face through things that happen that are great, things that happen that are bad. He has his moments where he gets frustrated, obviously. But I remember everybody in the dugout was losing their mind, and Coach, he cracked a smile on his face. And so he was like, probably shouldn't have thrown that pitch. And so, I just remember seeing his face and hearing him say that. And then, we went on to the field and celebrated. You get the walk-off home run dance at home plate. Went into the locker room, everybody's flicking on and off the lights, playing music and stuff like that. So, that was electric, man. That was a lot of fun.
Now, say you walked into the newsroom on a weekday and you had a Bohawk. What would Joe Moore
Joe Moore would probably tell me to go visit my barber. He would, Joe didn't like the beard that I grew. I try and keep it manicured and nice, but Joe's a classic individual. Is there anybody more classy out there than Joe Moore? He's like Rob DeMello likes to call him the New York Yankees of broadcasting, because he is. He's like the Yankees. And so, I don't think a Bohawk would fly in the newsroom, in the Yankees newsroom. So that's what we like to compare it to.
All right, let's go back to that 2010 WAC tournament. And, of course, that championship game, the winner-take-all one against Fresno State. Everybody talks about what Colton Wong did against Louisiana Tech and throughout that tournament. But in that first inning, you actually pitched. You were one of the starters in that game. When you saw Jeffrey Van Dornum go over the batter's eye in that first inning, they estimated it about 470 feet. Had you ever seen him hit a ball that far?
Actually, yeah. So, yeah, Unbelievably, yes. So that shot was so there's like a 50-foot wall in center field at Ho'okan Park in Mesa, Arizona. That's the ball that he hit over there. But so Jeff Van Dorn, incredible player for us, hit a ton of home runs. He actually had both of his shoulders fixed with labrum surgeries. And he was never really the same guy after that because he always had issues with both of his shoulders. He didn't get to lift in the weight room. But in 2009, in the fall, he was finally healthy. So he was, getting after it in the weight room. He put on about 20 pounds of muscle. And that fall, he was the best player on our team. You're talking about a team with Colton Wong. We set the school home run record that year. Colton Wong, Vinny Catricala, Kevin McDonald, all these guys who hit, double-digit home runs that season. And Jeff was the best player on that team at that point until he hurt his shoulders again. And so I remember in inter squads, he hit one opposite field, as a right-handed hitter, opposite field across the street in right center into the power plant, which I've seen lefties do a couple times. I've never seen a righty take it opposite field into the power plant. And that guy had insane power. And it's unbelievable that he was able to do that basically with two shoulders that didn't really work. He was able to hit balls that far. He was an incredible hitter. And I'm really sad that, we didn't get to see him at his peak to be healthy his whole career. He might still be playing in the major leagues.
You were drafted by the Twins. What did you learn about yourself in your stint as a minor league pitcher?
I learned that I was limited athletically against the insane talent that you get in the minor leagues. Because I was a hard worker. I always worked to, perfect myself, and I got as good as I could get. And so when I look back on my career, I'm like, okay, I put in all the work. But when you look at some of these kids, we'd have 18, 19-year-old kids that would come in throwing, 98 miles an hour. And I was like, I can't do that. I'll never be able to do that. So, despite all the hard work, you just have these athletes that, you see in the major leagues, you see in, different sports. You see on the UH men's volleyball team this year, just these incredible athletes, right? Rado Parapunov, he's a different level of athlete. And I realized that I wasn't that. But I had a great time, building all these bonds. I still get to see, Miguel Sano is a guy I played with. You get to see him in all-star games and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. But, yeah, I learned that I was a little bit limited.
When we had an earlier Fan Friday with both Cole Kaler and Alex Beza, we know baseball players are a different type of guy. They have superstitions unlike any other athlete out there. What were a couple of your superstitions?
I was interestingly, as a, left-handed pitchers always get this weird, stereotype that they're kind of funky. And yeah, they generally are. A lot of them don't know how to put on their hat straight. I actually didn't have any superstitions, believe it or not. Like there was nothing that I had to do every single day. I just tried to get a good night of sleep before games. That was pretty much it, man. It was just as simple as it was. We had weird teammates that would wear their pants down if they were hitting well, or if they weren't hitting, roll them up, or like change their walkout song, all that stuff. I don't know. None of that stuff works. It's just superstitions. So, the only thing is I try not to touch the line walking out to the field, but that's generally because, you see the guys like they do the lines before the game and it's so perfect and they work so hard. I just didn't want to mess it up. It wasn't a superstition. I just felt bad. Like, hey, these guys worked really hard on this.
One of the analysts with Spectrum Sports, and he's been there for a very long time, going back even with the OC Sports and K5, Pal Eldridge, will always say whenever a lefty's on the mound, they are crafty. Were you a crafty pitcher?
No, I was. I was what I would call effectively wild. So crafty is like, you really know how to pitch and you can mix in change-ups, change speeds, all this stuff. Everything I had was basically power. I had my changeup wasn't any good, and I threw a fastball that was decently hard in college back then, low 90s, and then I had a curveball that I threw really hard that was in the low 80s. So everything I threw was maximum effort. It was real firm, and it was I would run up counts. I remember there was a game I pitched against New Mexico State where it was like I threw like 130 pitches in 6 innings. And it was just like every count would be like 2-2, 3-2, and then I get a strikeout or something like that. So just some wild games like that. So I was definitely it was the hitters didn't know pitches were going to be a strike or not. So that played in my advantage. But yeah, effectively wild. I definitely wasn't crafty. I would have loved a bit. I tried. It just wasn't in my cards.
From 2012 to 2018, you were the weekend sports anchor for KHON2. Do you have a favorite sporting event or a story that you covered or told?
Ooh, it's a great question. The 2014 state championship game between Mililani and Punahou in football. Final score ended up being like 60 to 50 something, and it was super close. That was a really, really fun game to cover. But I think the best one, and this is also high school football, was the 2016 state championship, and that was the St. Louis Kahuku, the rematch of the year before when Kahuku had shut down St. Louis and Tua, and then the next year was a slugfest. You know, it was kind of a low scoring game still, but it was like Tua kind of shed the monkey of beating Kahuku off his back, and I remember he had this touchdown run late in the game. And he was really good in that game, and that was like, wow, like you knew this guy was a different level. Like we all knew he was special, but when he beat that incredible Kahuku team coached by Vavai Tata, that whole defense was awesome. That was fun. That was chicken skin stuff. That's like the legendary, you know, kind of prep football stuff in Hawaii. So that was really cool.
When I say the name Rob DeMello, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I get the first thing that comes to mind is just thinking about his smile and his laugh, because that guy's always, you know, making me smile and laugh. He's my best friend. He's always been my mentor. He's just, you know, one of the all-time good dudes, and you know, the sports guru now in Hawaii. You know, he's been doing it for so long, and he's so good at it, and he's so passionate about it. It just puts a smile on my face just thinking about that guy. You know, I got to go to the beach with him the other day and his kids, and I brought my son, and he's a great dad. He's a great person, and man, he is an incredible sportscaster. He's the best.
Your first day as a weekend anchor, did Joe Moore have any pieces of advice or any tips that he gave to you that you still remember to this day?
I remember, so he kind of feels you out, right? So he kind of watches you, and he'll wait a little bit to give you tips and stuff like that. One time he told me to, you know, relax, because I was real nervous. You know, I didn't study to be on TV. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. So it was kind of baptism by fire. You know, I interned for like a couple months, and it was like, okay, let's see if he can be on the desk with Joe Moore. And that was terrifying. Because, you know, Joe Moore is just this legendary figure that everybody in Hawaii, you know, loves. But, you know, he just kind of calmed me down, just relax. It's okay. And, yeah, and so it was more so he's just a leader by example. You know, you watch all the things he does in between, you know, commercials. He always massages the scripts and he goes over them, but going over again just to make sure, okay, we're using this word in the right context. This is the correct fact. So everything had to be accurate, and that's the most important thing. And so I think that's, you know, what I learned obviously from Rob, but also from Joe, is just accuracy is paramount.
When you're reporting during the weekday, it's not a typical 9 to 5 type of deal. Kind of take us through a day in the life of you as a weekday reporter.
Yeah, so it's a challenging job. I think you know, to this day, you know, it might seem like anchoring is difficult, but I think reporting is far more difficult. So what I, you know, do is wake up in the morning. You know, usually I'll have a week in advance story ideas that I've been coming up with, that I've been working on, talking to different people, trying to line up interviews. So, you know, we give our story pitches at about 2:00. You know, I work 2 to 10. And so, you know, I pitch a story. So I used to, throw pitches. Now I pitch stories. And so, you know, try and develop the most interesting and impactful stories that I can. And so, you know, we pitch it to our producers. A lot of times they'll get shot down. So, you know, it's another thing, like dealing with failure. Like, okay, so how can I make this to where it would be a more interesting story? So it's something that we could go with. So, and so the pitch either gets, you know, picked up, or we come up with something else to go on. And that usually happens by 2:30, 3:00. And then it's making phone calls. Okay, who can we talk to about this? What information can we get about this? So that's one thing that I've had to learn to do too, because I don't like bothering people. And sometimes I feel like a professional botherer. I'm just calling people all the time. So that's one thing I got to get over myself, is just, you know, okay, call all these people, keep making calls, keep making phone calls, make these contacts, make these connections. So yeah, do that, line up interviews, and then now in COVID times, a lot of these interviews are done via Zoom. If we do it in person, we got the long, like 6-foot boom mic that we use. But yeah, compile interviews, keep researching, and then, really I'll get down to start writing probably about 6 o'clock. Hopefully I can get my interviews done by then. That's a good night. And then get to writing. Hopefully finish by 7:30. You got to shoot an intro and an outro. So I got to do that at night. So go shoot that, and then get it into my editor. Hopefully by 8:30. They get an hour and a half to edit it. Then I get to sneak in some dinner, write the web post, and then the package airs at 10 o'clock. That's how it goes.
On the weekends, how much fun do you have working with both Kamakapili and also Alan Hoshida?
Awesome. So Alan Hoshida, we added just this past year as our new weekend sports guy, Cage-Man. He's fantastic. He's also a Bay Area sports fan, so we get to bond about that all the time. So, talk about the Giants and the 49ers and the Warriors and stuff like that. So that's been great. And then Kamakapili has just been such an incredible resource for me to learn, because his depth of knowledge about Hawaii and the history of Hawaii and the Hawaiian culture is so vast. So I learn something every day from him. If you haven't seen his Aloha Authentic, both the show and then the segment that we run on KH1, I highly recommend it. It's so educational, and it's really well done and entertaining as well. So yeah, and then Kamaka's really good at also the weather, explaining exactly why all these things are happening. Like, okay, so we're gonna have trade winds, this is why. We're gonna have Kona winds, we're gonna get some thunderstorms, this is why. So I've been learning more about the weather. It's complicated stuff, man. I still don't understand it completely. But yeah, working with those guys is a real treat.
Is there ever a time where you're listening or watching a 6 o'clock newscast and you hear Joe Moore say, "Did you know?" And then after he finishes, you think, "Oh yeah, I did know that."
Not once. I've never known anything he said, and I don't know where he gets them from. I asked him. He's very secretive about his tricks. So I don't know where he gets this depth of knowledge of all these interesting facts. But I don't think I've ever ran into one where I was like, "Oh yeah, I knew that." And even like he's had some baseball stuff before. It's all stuff that I didn't know. But they're always pretty witty, especially on Fridays recently, he's been doing some like dad jokes, which have been really fun. All these, puns and all these really good dad jokes. So those have been fun to listen to as well. I don't know, Tiff, you ever had any that you like, I knew that?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Unbelievable. I don't know how he does it.
Last one for you here, Sam, and we thank you for your time as you are on vacation. So when we do finish, go back in and please enjoy your vacation. But your last one here, the time that you have, which doesn't seem to be a whole lot of free time to begin with, we also see you on Spectrum Sports from time to time as a pregame, postgame analyst, working with Scott Robbs, Harrison Kuroda, Matt Inouye. When you look at this baseball team and you saw the potential coming after the 3-1 series victory over Long Beach State and then getting swept on the road last week at UC Irvine, how pivotal is it for the pitching staff this weekend against a very good Gaucho squad to come away with, at minimum, a split in this series?
Yeah, I think this is a team that really can compete for a Big West championship. Now, losing 4 in a row to Irvine puts a huge dent in those hopes. But, if they can come back and regroup themselves against UC Santa Barbara, they have the ability. That's the thing, is it's frustrating because especially this pitching staff, which gave up, I forgot the number of runs against UC Irvine over the series, but I know it was 20 in the last game. They had a really bad series, but they have the arms. You just watch these guys. They have the ability, and they have depth. It's not like they're short on pitching depth either. So, Aaron Davenport, I think, is one of the best pitchers in the country. He obviously didn't have his best outing against Irvine. It wasn't horrible or anything like that, but I think he sets the tone for the entire rotation. He's super competitive and aggressive. So I think that, they can have success against UC Santa Barbara. It's all about getting past what happened last week mentally and refocusing. But yeah, a series split, I think, is at least a must if they hope to keep their chances alive in the Big West Conference.
Sam, this has been so much fun. We really appreciate the time you've given us today. Thank you so much again for joining us. Continued success both at KHON2 and with Spectrum Sports.
You're the best, Tiff. Thank you so much for having me. Always love listening to you on the radio and also on the broadcast. You're the best. Thanks, Tiff.
Much love, Sam. Thank you so much. For Sam Spangler, as well as the rest of us here at ESPN Honolulu, I'm Tiff Wells saying thank you for joining us here for the 27th edition of ESPN Honolulu Fan Friday Talk Story. Until next time, wear that mask, stay safe, be socially distant.